at number 10, Green Lantern. Sometimes it's one of Justice League's own members that takes down the here, friends. We talkin' the hero. Gotham was a promising hero who first appeared in DCU Rebirth issue 1 in 2016. Real name Henry Clover Jr., he and his partner Gotham Girl gave off some serious Superman Supergirl vibes. They were metahumans who initially aided Batman in saving a commercial plane from a Cobra Cult terrorist attack. Batman took them under his wing, but soon it's revealed that they got their powers from Hugo Strange and Psycho Pirate. Powers that would degrade their lifespan the more that they used them. They eventually go on a rampage and nearly kill the members of the Justice League before succumbing to their powers and dying themselves. Karma? In at number 6, Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter is one of those heroes in the DC universe who is continually full of surprises. Now for starters, he's a hero who is capable of a lot. The range of his abilities is actually pretty mind-blowing when you've been feelings for a long time. He ended up being manipulated by an evil imp into bringing down the Justice League. Yes, an evil imp. The character is most famous for being strongly disliked, which writer Christopher Priest and editor Brian Augustine decided to play with by making the characters within the DC universe also strongly dislike him. In at number 4, Wonder Woman. If Superman made this list, you bet your butt Wonder Woman did too. Now unlike the Man of Steel, possession with the intention of turning her into a weapon against the JLA isn't really top priority for a lot of Diana's enemies. She's never really been the type to go after her fellow members on the team either. Rather, when Diana has turned against them, it's usually been on an alternate Earth. A prime example of that is the Flashpoint universe. She murders Aquaman, decapitates Mira, stabs Shazam, aka Billy Batson, a kid, right in the heart. She's ruthless and merciless when she needs to be. Luckily, Diana isn't a JLA member that's easily corrupted. Moving on to number 3, Nightwing. Being Batman's ward sure does have its perks. You're privy to everything, a lot of information, working with the world's greatest detective who's downright obsessed with being prepared for literally any situation. It's also no easy job, which is something that's been reflected in Dick Grayson's story arcs over the years, and is also kind of the basic premise of DC's Titans show, which is surprisingly really good, FYI. Regardless, the acrobatic crime fighter has had the upper hand over many, having been trained by the Dark Knight himself. Dude is capable of a lot, including taking down the Justice League. In Nightwing: The New Order, a story that occurs in a near-future world where society has rejected superheroes, he does exactly that. Metahumans are illegal. Nightwing heads a government-sponsored task force to hunt them down, which also includes hunting down the Justice League, which he does. Moving on to number 2, Shazam. Originally a character owned by Fawcett Comics, Shazam, whose name changed from Captain Marvel after a fun ping-pong match of a legal battle, can arguably rival the power and strength of Superman. Shazam, the name of the wizard who gave him his powers and also the word that he says to activate said powers, stands for 6 immortal elders: Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury, all of whom Shazam has traits from. So in other words, he's wicked strong when he transforms. While in the past he's been a member of the Justice League, he's also come up against them a few times, with the most memorable conflict and successful one being in Alex Ross and Mark Waid's Kingdom Come miniseries circa 1996. Billy Batson, now an adult, is manipulated by villainous mastermind Lex Luthor into taking on the Justice League and Batman's Outsiders team. He almost kills Superman in the process. Eventually, he breaks free from Lex's control and ends up sacrificing himself in order to save everyone. Oh Shazam, you and that heart of gold. And finally, in at number 1, Batman. Of course Batman can take on the Justice League. Not only does the Caped Crusader have some serious plot armor, he's also notorious for being overprepared and paranoid. So, works with the Justice League on a regular basis. Wonders what would happen if any of them turned evil. Decides to come up with a backup plan to kill any of them if they lost it. Yep, that sounds like Bruce Wayne to me. That's exactly what went through Bruce's head during the 2000 JLA Tower of Babel storyline. Ra's al Ghul would steal all of Batman's information, revealing that the Caped Crusader had a plan if any of the members turned on him. We also got another glimpse of what Batman's intellect and preparation could do in 2014's Batman Endgame storyline, in which he fought the League while in one of his Bat mech suits while all of his peers were exposed to Joker toxin, when the villain returned for the first time after the iconic Death of the Family story arc. Needless to say, Batman's got this. In at number 10, Maestro and the Hulk. In 1992, a Hulk story titled Future Imperfect was released, penned by Peter David with art by George Perez. In it, we got a glimpse of the future, and surprise surprise, it lives up to its title. 100 years into the future, there has been a nuclear war in which most of the superhumans on the planet were killed off and humanity is on the brink of extinction. Fun! But guess who's still kicking around? The Hulk. Or rather, Maestro, a future version who has become the supreme ruler, so to speak, of the planet, and has also been driven mad thanks to constant exposure to nuclear radiation that his body has absorbed. When Maestro and Hulk from our time eventually face off, Maestro's superior strength and his experience, along with the fact that he knows how this version of himself from the past likes to fight, he's able to dominate the combat, and even breaks Hulk's neck. Eventually though, the Maestro meets his end, being killed in the same gamma bomb explosion that created the Hulk in the first place. It's a complex storyline, people. In at number 9, Dark Beast and Beast. Dark Beast is a version of Beast, aka Hank McCoy from Earth 295, the Age of Apocalypse timeline. Dark Beast is arguably Hank's scariest alternate. A mad scientist of sorts, he would conduct unethical experiments on living subjects, often to do with genetics, which would typically result in a whole lot of torturous events. He was one of the few characters to find his way over into the 616 universe after the initial Age of Apocalypse story event, and after a brief stint of amnesia, Dark Beast began to continue his genetic experiments in secret. And then, when X-Men Volume 2 issue 49 rolled around, Dark Beast had kidnapped the 616 Beast, kept him prisoner behind a brick wall, and then infiltrated the X-Men, matching his fur color with the 616's fur color. He kept this up until the Onslaught saga, when he joined up with the villain who had immediately known that Dark Beast was not the real Beast. In at 8, Wally West and Heroes in Crisis. Oh, Heroes in Crisis. Heroes in Crisis was essentially a murder mystery story that also doubled down as a mental health PSA involving superheroes. In theory, great idea. In practice, not so much. In it is revealed that Wally West was the one behind a massacre, having committed the crime, and then he ran forward in time to kill his future self so he could bring back his corpse and use it to shed any onus on him being responsible. That is shit. The worst part is that he ended up basically framing Harley Quinn and Booster Gold for the murders too. His justification? Well, he was a little messed up after his entire family was wiped from existence. So, long story short, Wally killed Wally. Moving on. In at 7, The Crossing Tony Stark. The Crossing is notoriously one of the worst crossover events in Marvel's history. In it, Tony Stark turns evil and a younger version of himself, who we will refer to as Teen Tony for the purpose of this number, is brought into the present day to essentially fight him. This went down in 1995, and the regular original Tony was revealed to have been seriously manipulated by Kang the Conqueror for years and years. Now, old Iron Man dukes it out with the Avengers after the truth is exposed, and the Avengers believe the only person capable of stopping Tony is himself. So they travel back in time to acquire a teenage Tony Stark who has yet to be corrupted by Kang. Whisk him into the present, they duke it out. Old Tony beats the shit out of Teen Tony, but eventually regains control long enough to sacrifice himself to end Kang's master plan. He dies and Teen Tony becomes Iron Man. And the best part? After the whole Onslaught saga, this story was pretty much retconned, with old Tony returning. Sorry, Teen Tony. In at 6, Young Cable killed Old Cable. Once upon a time, there was a whole storyline in which the X-Men of the past, the first original 5 members, were brought into the future. This was courtesy of Brian Michael Bendis, of course. During all of this, the teenage version of the time-traveling mutant Cable was also kicking around, and he knew how dangerous it was that these younger versions of the X-Men were chillin' in the present day for so long. So in the Extermination series, he ends up killing his older self and helping the time-displaced X-Men return home, which they're like totally down for. At the beginning of Extermination issue 1, Old Cable is gunned down by his younger self, and it was a big shocker at the time. In at 5, Iron Lad and Kang the Conqueror. This number is kind of a little bit of a reverse. It's still a character defeating the original, but the original is the scary version rather than the alternate. We are talking about Iron Lad and Kang the Conqueror. So, Iron Lad first appeared in Young Avengers issue 1 in 2005, when he's rescued by his time-traveling adult self, Kang the Conqueror. At the time, he's 16, and he's rescued from an event that would have turned him into the villain his future self became, aka Kang. He then ends up nabbing some tech from Kang, goes into the past, and seeks out the aid of the Avengers, who were disbanded at the time. He ends up forming the Young Avengers and calls himself Iron Lad, modeling himself after Iron Man. Eventually, Kang gets pissed and wants to return his time-displaced younger self to where he belongs, but instead he ends up battling the Young Avengers, and Iron Lad, using Hawkeye's sword, stabs Kang right through the chest, killing him, and terrifyingly enough causes some major changes to the timeline, the likes of all of the Avengers being killed off, Jessica Jones losing her baby, and Wiccan and Hulkling disappearing. Iron Lad realizes the only way things will go back to normal is if he becomes Kang the Conqueror, which is tragic in itself. That's what he does, he returns to his time. In at 4, The Batman Who Laughs. The Batman Who Laughs is an amalgamation between Batman and the Joker, who hails from the dark multiverse on Earth -22. He's what happened to Bruce Wayne when Bruce killed the Joker, and the Joker's body let out a toxin that he then inhaled. This combined the genius and meticulous strategist skills of Bruce and the absolute madness and love of chaos of the Jokers, creating arguably one of the scariest DC villains in the past decade. Acting as one of the prime antagonists in the Dark Knight's Metal event, he led a group of evil alternate Batmans from other Earths in the Dark Multiverse under the directions of the demonic entity Barbados, who wanted to destroy the regular multiverse. And he continuously managed to give our regular Batman a run for his money, knowing exactly how the Cape Crusader thinks, always managing to be one step ahead of him because of it. So while he arguably managed to defeat Bruce in a one-on-one match, Bruce had to do something so unpredictable in order to defeat this nefarious character. He got a little help from his arch nemesis, the Joker. But that wasn't the last of this evil alternate. Spoilers, my friends, the Batman Who Laughs came back to screw with the Prime Earth Batman some more. And without giving away what went down, let's just say that Bruce may have met his deadliest foe to date. In at 3, Onslaught. The Onslaught saga is yet another controversial story event, primarily because many people dislike it. True story. That aside though, it does feature an evil version of not only one character, but technically two. Onslaught is the amalgamation of Charles Xavier and Magneto, who came to be when Xavier used his telepathic powers to shut down Magneto's mind, turning him catatonic, which allowed for the darkest aspects of Magneto's mind to enter into Xavier's subconscious. Now this created a whole separate persona, Onslaught, who remained dormant for a while before awakening. He overpowers Xavier and becomes a destructive threat to the entire Marvel universe. Luckily, he would be defeated later on by the combined efforts of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, who sacrificed themselves to take him down, although were eventually returned and reborn in a pocket universe created by Franklin Richards, which then led to Heroes Reborn, which also wasn't great. And at number 2, Homelander and Black Noir. So heads up friends, if you have not read The Boys, we're talking the comics, and are watching the show, this may spoil revelations yet to come in later seasons, so spoiler alert, you've been warned. In The Boys, the comics, as the story progresses, we learn some startling news about Homelander and one of his fellow members of the Seven. Black Noir, the silent and enigmatic analog for Batman in this universe, remains a mystery for a long time in the panels, until it is revealed that he is actually an insane clone of Homelander's, who is largely responsible for many of the terrible things that Homelander himself thought he was to blame for. Black Noir was created as a contingency plan. Using a refined version of Compound V, Black Noir's existence is to ensure that Homelander never oversteps, and if he does, it is Noir's mission to kill him. But being forced to reside and work so closely with Homelander drove Black Noir insane, and he would go around committing horrifying atrocities in Homelander's costume as a means of trying to get Homelander in trouble enough to have his death ordered. Smart. During a massive confrontation inside the Oval Office, Black Noir actually kills Homelander. But fear not friends, he eventually meets his own end thanks to Billy Butcher. And last but not least, in at number 1, Forever Evil, with Lex Luthor and the whole crime syndicate. This one is somewhat of a two-parter. In the New 52, Forever Evil was a DC crossover event that ran from 2013 to 2014, and saw the crime syndicate of Earth 3 having taken over all of Prime Earth. We're talking evil alternate versions of the Justice League people, except, you know, they want to commit crimes, hence the name Crime Syndicate. It's bad news. Ultraman, the evil variant of Superman who would grow weaker with the sun's rays, moved to the moon to cover up the sun to ensure that he never lost power. Nightwing's identity is exposed on national television, the world loses electricity entirely. Governments are toppled. Essentially, things are real bad. But perhaps what's worse is the fact that the Crime Syndicate managed to defeat all of the Justice Leagues. Like all of them, minus 2 members, Batman and Cyborg, and also technically Catwoman, with Cyborg being unconscious at the time that we see that he's survived, and Batman noting in Forever Evil issue 2 that the rest of the League did not make it. Now they join up with Lex Luthor, who has created an Injustice League to combat the threat. But Luthor has his own evil alternate to worry about, Alexander Luthor of Earth 3, who is actually a hero on his Earth, who operates similar to Shazam by calling out Mazaz to get his power. Except when he is brought to Prime Earth and eventually freed from the Crime Syndicate's captivity, he kinda goes rogue and starts killing off a bunch of heroes. While he never flat out defeats Lex before Lex manages to realize their voices are the same, hence why he's able to transform Alexander into his weaker self by calling out Mazaz, Alexander Luthor still manages to kill a bunch of other heroes and put the Crime Syndicate to shame. Regardless, the Crime Syndicate in their takeover managed to take out their Justice League counterparts, and yeah, that's pretty darn intense to begin with.
Number 10, Cyclops. The rivalry between Scott and Logan is legendary at this point, and it's not just all about Jean either. Even when she's not there, they still can't get along. She's usually not there because she's temporarily dead. It's fine, it's a thing. The fact that they can't get along has a lot to do with their different base personalities. Scott is not only an authority figure, but someone who leads through opposition a lot, and he could care less if you like him or not. Wolverine responds super poorly to authority and is much more of a let's get this done, not a let's think this to death kind of person. Also a bit of a lone wolf. So they fight, be it verbally or physically, but this fight was actually because Wolverine was being influenced by the villain Sauron. Because of this, he began to hallucinate, seeing his teammates as enemies instead. This led to him tussling with Cyclops. While Wolverine was able to pin Cyclops, Scott was able to blast him off and far away and keep the fight on his own terms. People forget how strong Scott's optic blasts are. They're much more than just pretty lights. Number 9, Gambit. Now unlike Cyclops, Wolverine and Gambit can get along and have enjoyed an easygoing friendship at times. So when these two face off, it's oftentimes more along the lines of intense sparring sessions, like it's more like let's see what we each can do. Such as in Uncanny X-Men number 273, where they fought in the Danger Room before it was a person that Xavier had been keeping trapped after it developed sentience. Dark stuff. Gambit's not above fighting dirty, which he does here. They're on par, which is already saying something. Old man Logan. This is when Gambit realizes that he can make the Danger Room kinda psych Wolverine out, and he makes it create Lady Deathstrike within it. Now, Wolverine has some pretty complicated feelings about her, and so this leads to Gambit being able to overpower him. Well played or dirty pool. You decide. Number 8, Beast. That's right, even Dr. Hank McCoy is getting on the action of defeating Wolverine. Though it wasn't by choice. Beast and Wolverine have a pretty good relationship, so this happened while Beast was brainwashed. This occurred in the Here Comes Tomorrow storyline. Beast was taken over by an entity called Sublime. Sublime is a sentient bacterial life form. Sublime finds it difficult to infect mutants, and as a result, there are rumors that he is the cause of the societal hysteria surrounding them. Although, let's be fair, in some cases it's not hysteria. When Sublime had control of Beast, it also harnessed the Phoenix Force within him. And so when Logan went to take him on, Beast was able to negate his healing factor, turning him just into a guy with some enhanced reflexes and adamantium skeleton, which is still a lot, but not as much as it could be. Beast actually killed him in this encounter, and Jean had to go back in time to ensure the incident never took place in order for him to survive it. Number 7, Storm. Storm can control the weather. She has been worshipped as a god. There's something very wrong with the world if she can't defeat Wolverine. Now, while Storm and Wolverine may at times have a romance that's kind of so out there, at least at first glance, that I love it, this didn't stop her from killing him in X-Men Forever. This was a series that in a very noirist fashion opens with a dead Wolverine. He was the shock kill, the gasp at the beginning. Who could kill Wolverine? Well, it turned out that was an evil Storm. That's who. But why though, you may be asking? Well, keep asking, because the series was cancelled, so the answer was never revealed. Number 6, Kitty Pryde, aka Shadowcat. Kitty is a very powerful mutant, but she wasn't always perceived that way. Her depiction has grown over time as people have really come to ponder and appreciate just how truly terrifying a phasing ability is. Kitty taking out Wolverine shouldn't really be much of a shock. In a what if story entitled What If Wolverine Enemy of the State, Kitty would kill Wolverine. In this story, Wolverine had fallen under Hydra control, and he was proving quite the danger, killing his former friends and allies. As a result, Kitty ended up engaging with him. Since he was so out of control, she stuck her hand through his head and re-solidified it inside, destroying his brain, and her hand was stuck in his skull since he had chopped it off. And as a result, he couldn't get it out and he couldn't heal. Ouch, and also gross. Number 5, Apocalypse. Now you would think you wouldn't just try to take on an essentially immortal, terrifying, powerful mutant with just your claws. Yeah, you might think that, but you're not Wolverine. Ultimate Wolverine decided to take on Apocalypse head on. But I mean, a lot of things happen in the Ultimate Universe. Needless to say, it does not go well for Wolverine. Apocalypse is pretty similar between 616 and 1610. Wolverine gets some good hits in, but with Apocalypse's pedigree, healing factor, and other powers, Wolverine gets pretty badly beaten. Number 4, Magneto. We've talked about this many a time here on Top 10 Nerd. Magneto once ripped out Wolverine's adamantium skeleton, just separated it from his body, pulled the metal right out through the skin. While this didn't kill him, it did put him out of commission for a while. This action, while gruesome, also gave some that actually makes a whole lot of sense. Why hasn't he done that before now? That's because he was being nice. Nice guy Magneto. This action proved to be the breaking point for Charles, who erased Eric's memory using his telepathic powers. Actually, he just erased the whole self as a person. This action would unleash a darkness in Charles, and also unknown to him at the time, merge their two consciousnesses together, eventually creating the being known as Onslaught. Number 3. Speaking of Onslaught, here he is. Once the fusion of Charles and Magneto was complete, the world was graced with Onslaught, an event that still has mixed reviews to this day. Well, however you felt about it, Onslaught was for a time described as beyond Omega level. People weren't going up against him one-on-one. No, you went in teams, and sometimes team-up teams, like the Avengers and the Fantastic Four. Wolverine against Onslaught, like a fly being swatted. Number 2, Proteus. What I'll always remember most about Proteus is Cyclops throwing coffee on Wolverine after. Proteus is the extremely powerful son of Moira McTaggart, too powerful to even boast a conventional physical form. Proteus can bend matter and reality to his will, so the best solution is obviously to take him on head on. Just jump right in there. Both Wolverine and Nightcrawler attempt this, and let's just say it goes horribly wrong. Proteus just completely unmakes them, warps them, turns them into goo and ooze, and then warps the world around them. Wolverine is incredibly shaken by this encounter, for obvious reasons. reasons, and it causes Nightcrawler to have a crisis of faith. Cyclops needs Wolverine to fight, so he throws coffee on him. You have to forge your own path as a leader. And number 1, Wolverine. No, I don't mean like his demons or something poetic like that. I mean another time-traveling version of himself. Now, we've had a couple of versions straight up murder each other for the greater good. Although some would argue it's always for the greater good, because one of these with a zombie, you just gotta really decide. Play it by ear, basically. In the Age of Ultron, which is completely different from the MCU film, no comparison at all, really, Wolverine ended up in a bit of a paradox, leaving the world with 2 Wolverines at the same time. And that's just one Wolverine too many, so one had to go. Wolverine murdered himself actually more than once in this arc, always from behind. I don't know, just there's something about that. Like, come on, look yourself in the eye. Number 10, speaking of the MCU universe, we're gonna have to go to their version of Civil War, which was a loose adaptation of the 2006 comic arc of the same name. In that comic, it's centered around the idea of pro versus anti-registration sides after a disaster that caused the death of many civilians. The film would center largely around the idea that there should be superhero accords, so kind of the same concept, but also detoured a bit onto Steve Rogers and his need to keep Bucky Barnes safe. That was a huge part of that movie. It was a lot of why he was anti-accord. It was. This film would culminate in the reveal, for Tony at least, that the Winter Soldier, aka the aforementioned Bucky Barnes, was the person who had killed his parents. This causes him to go off the deep end because he was not the most stable person in this movie. He would end up battling full out with the Winter Soldier and Captain America, and we would get actually an admittedly very cool fight scene where the two teamed up to take him down. This climactic battle would result in a moment that, in my theater at least, actually elicited audible gasps from the audience. It's the moment where at the end, Captain America brings down his shield right down the center of Iron Man's chest, right where his arc reactor used to be, which a few films earlier would have killed him, and even then leaves him there in the cold, in that hideout with no power. It was an intense moment. Defeated, and he lost his friends. I mean, although he had been imprisoning them, it was not the best look for Tony in either Civil War. This movie would divide fans into pro Iron Man and pro Cap camps for quite a while. Number 9, Original Sin, aka Original Retcons. This was a Marvel event from 2014, wherein it was revealed that there were secrets in the Marvel Universe, original sins, because we were playing upon the biblical allegory here. So, what was Iron Man's original sin? Well, it was revealed that he had tampered with the gamma bomb that had caused Bruce Banner to become the Hulk. And when Bruce figures this out, he is of course enraged. So he manages to get a hold of some extremist tech so that he can hold on to his Bruce Banner consciousness when he transforms into the Hulk, so that he can go and confront Tony properly. And confront him he does, taking out his Hulkbuster armor in literally one punch. Just one punch. He was the One Punch Man. Tony survives the fight by running away to get more armor. A loss or a strategic retreat? You decide. Number 8, Thor. After the comic book Civil War, a lot of heroes had some strong feelings towards Tony. I mean, Thor ended up being cloned by Reed in this arc. Just they needed a big, heavy muscle guy on their team, so they cloned Thor. Nobody likes being cloned without their consent. I mean, Tony was creating alternate dimension prisons. It was just not going well. After this, him and Thor would end up getting into it. And it's important to remember here that Thor is indeed a god, and Tony is a guy in some really souped up armor, which he actually has to remind Thor of because Thor is dismantling him so thoroughly, throwing him up into the air, ripping his mask off, just pieces coming off everywhere. He needs to be calmed down because that could have gone pretty intensely. He made his point though, and for many fans they felt it was a take that Tony moment, because after Civil War there was a lot of take that Tony, despite the fact that reviews said that the comic was balanced and nuanced, which I think if it had been, there wouldn't have been as much take that Tony. Number 7, Contest of Champions 2. Let them fight. There's something about that plot that just captures the imagination of fans. Just pitted together, normally on an island-style location, and forced to duke it out. Well, this happened in Contest of Champions 2, and Iron Man was pitted against mutant powerhouse Psylocke. Now, at first they were pretty evenly matched because her psychic attacks weren't really working on him because his armor could see through them, because she tried some psychological tricks. However, ultimately, because she had nanites inside of her, she was able to deliver this flurry of rapid-fire blows that were also backed up by her psionic abilities, and that took him out. If you're gonna use the Goku punch strategy, then you know, the other person gotta be prepared, and sometimes your armor just can't take that, and this was one of those times. Number 6, Rogue. This comes to us from X-Men Legacy 267. This was during the whole Avengers versus X-Men arc lead up surrounding everything. This is where the Phoenix Force and Hope Summers were viewed as the saviors of mutant kind. However, by other heroes it was viewed as more of a threat because, I mean, the Phoenix Force, pretty dangerous. Cap and Iron Man would go hard trying to capture Hope Summers, and this would lead them into many conflicts with the X-Men. Iron Man actually goes to Xavier's school, institute, Jean Grey's, whatever we're calling it at that point, and finds himself having to take on Rogue. And even though he points out that he's beaten her once before, she says that that was a different time. And then he also makes the mistake of attacking Gambit, which sends Rogue into a berserker-like rage, and she channels the She-Hulk's powers and just literally punches right through him. She just pummels him till all his armor is just bits on the ground. It's a good thing these armors are durable, / sometimes he's not actually in them, because otherwise he'd be dead several times over, which we're gonna get to later on. Dead Tony, that is. Don't mess with Rogue, or apparently more importantly, don't mess with Gambit. Number 5, the Winter Soldier. That's right, Bucky Barnes gets to make this list twice, but this time from the comic book universe. The return of Bucky Barnes was a huge event in comic book fandom, because for a time he had been viewed as one of these sacred deaths, one of those characters that was not coming back. However, things change, and his return arc was pretty well received. In Captain America 33, which followed Civil War, well, he was out to get some revenge on Tony, because at the end of Civil War, Captain America was assassinated on the courthouse steps. So Bucky felt that this was Iron Man's fault, using the whole if you two hadn't been fighting and this hadn't happened, he wouldn't have been there kind of logic. So the two would get into it, and ultimately Bucky would get the upper hand by pushing him into a set of power lines that would like overload his suit, which, I mean, you would think that that would happen a lot more often. I feel like I should be taking notes. Bucky Barnes is all the simple tricks. Number 4, What If Spider-Man Back in Black, which for a while I was like, that sounds like an album title, and then I remembered that it was AC/DC. I redeemed myself. This What If takes us back to, again, some events from Civil War. After Peter revealed his identity at Tony's behest, it did not go well for him, and Aunt May ended up getting shot. Well, on this What If, it's Mary Jane who gets shot, and Spider-Man goes right off the deep end, even though in main canon he was willing to sacrifice his marriage and memories of being with her to get Aunt May back. But you know what? That's neither here nor there. We're talking about Back in Black. In this comic, he decides that he's gonna put that black suit back on, he's gonna go get revenge, and he's out to kill. Well, he ends up getting into a fight with Iron Man, and he actually puts his hand over the repulsor ray, which causes it to reflect back on Tony. This takes him out, puts him down for the count, and Peter can go off on his killing spree. Just everybody in all the realities, Civil War. Number 3, Superior Iron Man. Ah yes, evil Tony Stark, who was around after the Axis event, which was an event where you saw heroes and villains swapped. And everyone went back to normal except for Tony, who not everybody was aware was evil Tony for a little bit. Well, in issue 9 of the Superior Iron Man, he would end up battling it out with Pepper Potts, who was in some Iron Man armor of her own, which was deemed inferior Iron Man armor. However, despite this, she was able to get the armor off of Superior Tony Iron Man with an electromagnetic pulse, which was pretty satisfying, just that she knew all the kind of little secrets to dismantle him. Pepper's put up with a lot over the years. So much more in the comics. So much more. Number 2, Avengers X-SANCTION, aka Iron Man fights Cable, and you know you want to see that. Cable was definitely there when it came down to protecting Hope Summers, even though he was being overwhelmed by the techno-organic virus inside his body, but I mean, that hasn't stopped him before and it doesn't stop him here. He was actually able to defeat Tony by using some future Stark technology that Tony had not invented yet, which of course he uses to mock Tony with to no end. He's even able to corrupt and overwhelm Tony's suit and then punches him right up into the Red Hulk. It's just never a great time to be Tony. Definitely not on this list. It was pretty cool, the design for Cable with this, with the reactor right in the center, his metal arm, just, you know, all the Cableness. And finally, in at number 1. I think you were waiting for it. I think you know what it is. That's right, it's Civil War II. The event's so nice they did it twice. Here we have a lot of the same story beats being covered, but instead we have Iron Man in the role of Cap and Captain Marvel Carol Danvers in the role of Iron Man. This one would center around the Minority Report dilemma. There should be stop crimes before they happen. Is that ethical or right? Well, after War Machine, who was at the time Carol's boyfriend, gets fridged, she is 100% for we need to stop all these crimes before they even happen, and she is off. This ultimately ends up with a giant climactic battle where she beats Tony to death. This is a moment that would cause a lot of contention, especially because there was a decent amount of contention surrounding Carol at this point in time anyway. So it was very quickly dealt with in the comics with, oh no, but Tony had an AI, and then that AI built a body, and we can all just pretend that that AI is Tony. Yes, let's do that. But yeah, Tony died hard.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Ringmaster. Issue 3 of the Incredible Hulk back in Volume 1, we see the Hulk take on the Ringmaster. Will the mighty Hulk be a match for the Ringmaster? Well, apparently, yeah. He takes on a whole circus of crime who, might I add, do not have any superpowers, but right off the bat, the human cannonball gets the Hulk quite good. The human cannonball, just a regular guy with a makeshift hammer. This dude's spine would fold on impact if he cannonballed into the Incredible Hulk, so already I'm upset. And then it gets worse. A regular guy with a fireman's hose blasts the Hulk, and then he goes down, this time for good. I mean, I know the Hulk's mind was being toyed with here a bit, but the fact that a crime circus was able to best him in the first place, not okay. Not okay. Number 9, Doc Ock. In Eric Larson's 1992 Spider-Man run, issue 19 titled Revenge of the Sinister Six showed us a more powerful version of Doc Ock because he had new fancier arms. In fact, the whole crew had the jump on Peter at this point. He was for sure in need of backup. And right on cue, the Hulk smashes through the floor, just sending wood chips all over the damn place. Already such a mess. And he's coming in hot too. The Hulk says knock knock when he busts out of the floor. That is so badass. First he flicks Shocker out of the way, gives him the finger, literally, and then he tosses Mysterio back to sleep. And then when he goes to handle Doc Ock, he's caught off guard from his unbreakable arms with limitless power. Doc Ock had the upper hand, or 4 upper hands, I guess, in this case. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be awesome. No sweat, but it does help us out quite a bit. I'm not going to waste any more time. Thank you so much. For the best. Back to this list. Number 8, the Hulk Killer. With a name like that, you already know how this one's going to end. Created by Sam Stearns, the leader, Hulk Killer first appeared in Tales to Astonish, issue 86. Some detectives are going through the leader's notes. They're finding out that he's created these humanoids, but the Hulk destroyed them all but one. This humanoid was built specifically to take down the Hulk, so the cops call in General Ross. They figure this ought to be an asset in some way, shape, or form for the government, but if only they could bring it to life, because, you know, what would possibly go wrong? So they bring him to life, and it all goes wrong. He just leaves, he walks right out of the building, not even phased one bit by the bullets, of course. Then the Hulk arrives, they battle it out, and they break their surroundings, but Hulk Killer just simply absorbs all these hits. Next, Hulk Killer beats Hulk so hard, he reverts back into his banner form. It's embarrassing. Number 7, Juggernaut. Kane Marco has been one of Marvel's biggest and baddest since his first appearance in X-Men issue 12. Once Marco came into contact with a gem, he then obtained the power of the Crimson Bands of Sidorak, becoming a human Juggernaut. Literally. The Hulk on average can beat Juggernaut, but in Incredible Hulk issue 402, Hulk bumps into this Jack dude who he realizes is not just an ordinary construction worker after all, rather it's Marco. Hulk thinks he has him. He tries to save Juggernaut's life after he falls into quicksand, but then he tries to pull Hulk in as well, so Hulk's like, alright, forget it, I'm gonna let you sink, see ya. Then of course he popped out of the quicksand and the beating continued, and it kept going and going, and the Hulk went down until he was almost dead. And that's when Red Skull stepped in and told Kane that was enough beating for now. Number 6, Zax. Making its first appearance in the Incredible Hulk issue 166, the Thing from the Dynamo was originally the result of an accident that happened at Edison Nuclear Power Plant. When a group of criminals tried to power off New York City, it went south, you know, the toughest gang in town, shutting down the power during Game of Thrones. That's truly, truly awful. Keep it up, guys. So guns started blazing and it caused this massive chain reaction in the atomic reactor, and then this living energy then absorbed them, and then soon took a humanoid form with a villain voice as well, of course. Zax absorbs the electricity from its victims' minds as well, so it gains their thoughts. Hawkeye comes in with a convenient foam arrow. In fact, Hawkeye's aim saved the day here, but they don't give him credit. They actually give the Hulk the credit, which is pretty rough. But don't worry, Hulk got what was coming from Zax when General Ross merged with the living energy and then beat down Hulk and Rick Jones. Ross was actually about to finish the pair off, but Zax's personality came back and then he flew off. That was a close call, Banner. A little too close. Number 5, Brian Banner. The father of Bruce Banner was honestly a pretty horrible guy. He killed Bruce's mother is honestly pure evil, and he of course was locked away for 15 years afterwards, and then when him and Bruce reunited down the road, Bruce accidentally killed him. Yikes. Now this isn't the end of his story though, because during the Chaos War storyline in Incredible Hulk's issue 619, his dad comes back as a Hulk demon who would get stronger the angrier Banner got. Now obviously this is a traumatic experience, going down memory lane can hurt quite a bit, so this demon Hulk dad would have finished off Bruce if Jarella didn't step in in to save the day. Bruce has the brain and Brian's got the pain. The Banners are a wild bunch. Number 4, Horfin. Born the offspring of a frost giant and Fenris, Horfin first appeared in the Incredible Hulk issue 422. When the Warriors 3 and the Hulk were going after Agamemnon, they followed them to Singard Castle. Horfin was created purely to guard this castle, so now the Hulk has to fight a frost wolf. And this is pretty intimidating because when the frost giant Singard himself unleashed his Horfin, the order was to kill the Hulk right off the bat. No warning, nothing, just go eat him, bye, go. And it did, yeah. I did mention this wolf was incredibly big, right? What a snack. Number 3, Pit. Image Comics introduced Pit in Youngblood issue 4. It was their version of the Hulk. He's an alien-human hybrid created by the Creed as a literal death machine. So 5 years later, Marvel gave the fans the ultimate battle and released Hulk Pit Reality Check. This was just 50 pages of punching and smashing and kicking. It's exactly what you would expect and want. But Pit remained on top for the most part of this fight, and you gotta include Image Comics whenever we can, because Pit is a treat. He's also drooling and jacked. He's just a nightmare. I would never want to deal with him. Number 2, Thanos. This is the only movie reference in this list, but I do have to include it. The time Thanos punched the Hulk in the neck so hard that the beast straight up retired. Avengers Infinity War, directed by the lovely Russo brothers, before the title card even pops up in the movie, before it's like, bam, Avengers, the Incredible Hulk is gone. You don't see him anymore. He pops out and tries to get the upper hand on Thanos, and without even using the Power Stone, Thanos rock and boppers his neck. Now, we don't see the Hulk after this for 5 whole years. And even then, he's like taking selfies and dabbing. It's not the same at all. And finally, number 1, Maestro. Maestro comes from an alternate future on Earth 9200, the Future Imperfect storyline. Now this takes place 90 years in the future, and that Hulk had basically just absorbed all this radiation from our fallen planet over time. He gets stronger, and unfortunately he also gets smarter. This isn't a dumb Hulk that gets, hosed down at a circus. This is the Maestro we're talking about. So our Incredible Hulk goes to fight him, but on the way into the massive city of Dystopia, appropriately named, Hulk finds all these weapons and artifacts from all of our fallen heroes. This new world was much harder to survive in, even with superpowers. And that's when Hulk meets up with his old friend, Rick Jones. Rick fills Banner in that basically everybody's dead except for those residing in Maestro's dystopia. He would keep the radiation level low enough for people to survive, but he would also keep it high enough for him to continue being powered up. Maestro ends up minecrafting his way to Jones' secret base, and the two Hulks come face to face. Now part 2 of the story is obviously just a massive fight. Maestro is terrifying. He calls Banner out on a bluff, and then he just tosses a lady to smithereens. Like, he actually doesn't care. He'll kill anybody in his way. It's terrifying. Hulk hits him where the sun doesn't shine, and Maestro sneaks up and breaks his neck, ending the battle and the story just like that.